What is going on, guys? Eric White in the building, and no, I did not choose my last name, unfortunately. And today we are talking about the Google Pixel 4. It was just announced today, and I think Brooklyn, New York, or Queens, New York at 10 a.m. EDT, which is 7 a.m. my time. Completely different story, off topic, but they announced it, and I have a few things to say about it. Now, first of all, this event was very different than anything that you would get from an Apple or a Samsung event for one specific reason. Google is more of a software-based company than they are a hardware-based company. They have Google, the biggest search engine in the entire world. They have YouTube, which is the second largest search engine in the entire world. And they have a plethora of other services and AI capabilities that they pay more mind to than they do with their hardware. Now, I say that because a lot of the specs, if you even want to call them that, and a lot of the features and everything that we're going to talk about with the Google Pixel 4 are not very definite, hardcore, this and that. It's not really anything like that. They are more of a software-based company, and because of that, a lot of the features and enhancements and just new things that they have to bring to this Google Pixel 4 is going to be software focused. It's not going to be any hardware driven crazy specs like a OnePlus phone or anything like that. It's going to be strictly software based, and I think it's a very interesting perspective. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into this. Now, the first thing that they mentioned about this new phone is how great their new gesture based navigation system really is. Now, if you've seen my previous video, I did it about a couple of months ago on the ad that Google did about this person walking up to the phone and it unlocking, and supposedly that they were going to be having some kind of face unlock and gesture features, and it was completely true. Obviously it was from Google and it was their ad, but we are seeing that in this new phone. They even said that this phone is supposed to have the fastest face unlock technology in a smartphone. If that isn't throwing a straight sucker punch to Apple, I don't know what is. But anyway, we are going to be seeing some gesture navigations on these new Google Pixel 4s, as well as the face unlock, and it's going to be interesting to see how fast this face unlock actually is. They say it's supposed to start reading your face as soon as it senses you picking up the phone. The gesture navigation is definitely interesting. I'm not exactly sure how practical that's going to be. Once again, they've had them on Samsung phones a super long time ago. They took them off because people called them a gimmick. And it's just going to be interesting. I don't know how many people are actually going to use it, how practical it's going to be, but those features are coming to the new Google Pixel 4s. Now, another thing that they added is enhanced Google AI features. I'm guessing that's basically what that was. Now, basically, this other feature is showing you how fast Google has become. You squeeze the phone just like you could with the Google Pixel 3s, and you ask it a question, and they purposely showed you how fast it actually was. And that's because they're offloading some of that by actually having some of that information already on the phone. Now, I could be messing this up and I'm not exactly sure the specifics, but basically all the information that the phones would otherwise have to go fetch themselves and then bring back to your phone, some of that is offloaded by being preloaded onto your Google Pixel device, so it responds a lot faster. It's just overall more snappy to your response, and it doesn't take 3 or 4 seconds like it usually does. It only takes about 1 to 2 seconds, which is actually a huge improvement. Now, with that said, you also have some enhancements to the voice recorder app, which I didn't expect to get, but if you're recording through the voice recorder app natively to the phone, it now knows and can transcode the speech and the words that are being said. So if you're doing a video just like this, and I'm recording this with the voice recorder, at any point during this voice recording app, because it's transcoding all those digital signals that I'm saying into actual words, at the end of the interview or at the end of the recording, I can go through and search literally any specific word that I want, and it will actually bring it up and go right to that specific spot. Amazing feature. I think that's probably going to be the most underrated feature, because I know me, for myself, I've downloaded a lot of voice recorders and even used some natively on the phone, and they're always just not as good as you would want them to be. So great feature, definitely going to be pretty underrated when it does come out to the consumers. Now, they were not shy at all about how great their new display is. In fact, they said that it got an A+ from DisplayMate, which is actually a great thing. And also, they said themselves that DisplayMate told them this: it is indistinguishable from perfect. Now, that is a big deal, because if you know anything about Pixel devices at all, you would know that specifically on the last year's model, the Pixel 3s, they were not necessarily the best screens in the world. There are some screen issues, some flickering, some weird pink lines that people were getting on their phones. Definitely gonna have to see how this actually plays out in real world, just like always. But the fact that they even said this is, I don't know, they really came to play today. So anyway, let's continue. Lastly, I almost forgot to mention this. These phones come with a 90 hertz refresh rate. Huge deal. Even Apple still hasn't done that yet. So very happy to see that. If you have been watching any reviews for any phones, you would know that the world is going absolutely crazy about these 90 hertz refresh rate phones like the OnePlus 7 Pro. Everyone is loving that phone, and because you get so used to that refresh rate and everything being so just buttery smooth, as much as I hate saying that, you start to get used to that when you go to these other phones, specifically an iPhone, and it doesn't have that. It's definitely something that you notice. So the fact that they even included that in their phones, I'm very happy about that. Now, they also mentioned that this phone is going to be coming in 3 colors, just like it did last year. I'm pretty sure that was last year. You're going to be having just black, pretty white, I think that's the name of it, and oh so orange. So those are the 3 colors we're getting. You can choose them at your own risk, I guess. And you guys should be very happy about this is the fact that it is now not restricted to just Verizon. Verizon does not have exclusive rights to the Google Pixel. It is now available for every US carrier. So you can get it for AT&T, for Sprint, for G-Mobile. Like, thumbs up if you guys get where that reference is from. But you can use it on any US carrier, and I'm so happy about that, because that was actually one of the things that was severely holding it back last year when the Google Pixel 3 came out, and even before that. And now we move on to the camera department for the Google Pixel 4s, and this is usually where Google hits it out of the park, especially with their previous phones. Google Pixels are known for being the designated camera device because of how great the camera is, especially in the HDR department, and this phone is no different because of that. They made a big deal about showing what live HDR is. Once again, every camera company is going crazy about this. HDR10, HDR plus, HDR this and that. HDR is high dynamic range, which is basically how much information you can keep in the highlights and also in the shadows. Because if you try to expose for something in the shadowy areas, the highlights are just going to get completely blown out, meaning that there's no information. It's going to be super bright. You're not going to be able to see any detail in the highlights. But you're like, okay, I'll just, expose for the highlights. So what you do is you lower the exposure significantly, exposing for the highlights so that you can actually see the detail, but then the shadows, there's no information in the shadows either, meaning that the shadows are crushed. And it's very hard for cameras when they see this, because there's not necessarily one right answer, and there's not even 2 right answers, because it's so hard to expose for one thing without completely blowing out or crushing the other element. So what they made a big deal about with this live HDR is that you're going to actually see what the camera shoots the picture of when you're holding it in the viewfinder. A lot of times when you shoot a picture, or when you're looking on the viewfinder, you look at the picture and you can see, hey, it looks a little bit blown out in the sky. I can't really see anything in the sky. Or, hey, the shadows absolutely have no detail. I have no idea what's going on over there. So now what they do is you can actually see exactly what the camera is going to shoot, not push it, have it process it, and then see the photo. It's going to actually show you in real time what that photo is going to look like with everything leveled out and not blown out or crushed. Great feature. Now, with that said, you're also going to be able to do 2 specific things, and that is adjust the highlights and the shadows as you are taking the picture. So suppose you're having a backlit subject, meaning the lighting source is behind the subject. That means that you're actually going to be able to not just see a silhouette, you're going to be able to adjust the shadows, pull them up so that you can see the detail in their face. And maybe you want a more dramatic, mysterious picture, you can put those shadows right back down, and it'll just be a backlit subject with a silhouette around them. So amazing feature. I don't even know how they thought of that. Just amazing feature. Now, another thing that they made a huge deal about, and this is a big deal if you know anything about photography, is accurately depicting what the white balance actually is. Now, for those who don't know what white balance is, basically you have a cool end, or the blue end, or you have the warm end, or the orange end. And anything in between them, there's a huge range of Kelvin that is in between those numbers, and accurately picking the right one entirely makes or breaks your photo. So if you have the wrong white balance, you can easily see that in a photo. If you have the wrong tint in a photo, you can easily mess up the photo. That's a different story. So them being able to accurately choose white balance is a huge deal. And sometimes it can be tricky, like if you have a blue light coming from your head, like as you can see in this video, if you have a blue light, something like that, it can cover the face and make it look like your face is blue. And so with this new neural engine, I'm guessing that's what it's in here, the new AI for the phone is going to be able to know exactly the right white temperature, the right white balance to choose, and do so accordingly. Another thing, and it wouldn't be an update to the camera if they did not include this, and that is an improvement to their portrait mode. Now, previously, if you knew anything about Pixel devices, they have never had a dual camera system. They've always had a single lens, and that is it, and it has worked sometimes more perfectly than phones that have a triple lens camera. And that is because it's using pixels to determine the depth and not the lens, which I guess makes a huge difference. In this phone, they decided to add another lens, but they're still using some of that old technology. So instead of just using the dual pixels to determine how far or the depth of something is, they're going to be using dual pixels as well as the dual cameras on the back, and I think that's going to make a huge difference. It was already beating a lot of other phones when it came to portrait mode, but now that they have the dual pixels as well as the dual lens technology, it's going to way more accurately depict how far something is and blur it accordingly. And they also made a big deal about how more realistic their blur is going to be, and it's not going to be as artificial as it usually is. It's going to have something that they call semantic segmentation, which is really just a big word for it's a lot smarter. It's going to be able to brighten faces, separate foreground, darken and denoise skies, which is a very huge thing. They made a big deal about how it's not just tapping a shutter and having a long exposure. It's about accurately taking a burst of 9 images, underexposing them, and when you put them all together, you can take the noise out of them. It was a lot of features, enhancements, and just overall a lot to the camera. And if you notice, I made it all the way to the end of this video without naming one single spec. I have no idea what Snapdragon processor is in there. I have no idea what the megapixels for the camera are. I don't even have any idea what the resolution for the screen is. I don't even know what the battery is. I just thought about that. We don't know any of those things. All we know is all of these software features, and that's exactly what I was mentioning at the beginning of this video. They are not a very hardware focused company. Hardware is secondary, software is primary. So a lot of these features, pretty much all of them, are going to be centered around how well that software optimizes it for the hardware, meaning the hardware probably doesn't have to be as good because the software is going to do a majority of that heavy lifting. And I think that's a very interesting perspective from Google themselves. I mean, every other company is sort of, they want to shove as much hardware as they possibly can. I mean, just look at the iPhone 11s that just came out. Now, there's not a lot of hardware to talk about, but the cameras are amazing, and it's not really software, kind of. It is a majority software, but a lot of it is hardware. They made a big deal about their Pro XDR display, about their Pro cameras, and Pro this and that. And what Google is doing, they literally I don't have any idea what's really in this phone. I just know all the software. They're taking a completely different approach, and I honestly commend them for that. It's going to be interesting to see what people can come up with, what's going to happen once we get these phones into our hands. That is all I got for you guys today. If you guys like this phone, if you think you're going to pick it up, if you have some insights as to what you think about the presentation, about basically all the information that I presented, let me know with the comment down below. If you guys like this video, click the like button, turn it blue. If you guys are new, click the sub button, join Innovation Nation, and just like always, I see you guys in the next one.